All right, so now we begin the introduction of one of the X-Men's other great foes, Sauron. And yes, that's Sauron, as in J.R. Tolkien's Sauron from Lord of the Rings. He is here. He's just taking the name. All right, so Dr. Lycos is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type character, and we learn pretty quickly that he's a shady doctor that was friends with Charles Xavier. Cyclops and Jean deposit Alex with him to be cared for, and he's like, "We'll leave him here overnight, and I'll take care of it, and you guys can come back and get him tomorrow morning or something." And they're like, "Okie dokie." So then Jean and Cyclops are lovey-dovey at this point. I don't know when they transitioned to actually being a couple, but here we are. So they're meandering around New York, holding hands, being chummy, and then like, and then they head back to the X Mansion. And when they get there, no one's around. And so Cyclops kind of stumbles into the danger room, not realizing that it's the danger room, apparently, and almost gets blasted because Warren, Hank, and Bobby are all training in the danger room. And Lorna's hanging out there, too. And so Cyke is like, I'm going to go change. He runs off. And then Jean and Lorna are like chit-chatting, and Jean makes some comment about Iceman being embarrassed because he's making a fool of himself in front of his girl. And then Lorna's like, "I'm nobody's girl." And then Jean's like, I'm super excited to see what he says when you tell him that. Bitches, right? Anyway, so they fuck around with the guys, activating extra panels using their magnetic and telekinetic powers, and they all are having a lark. Meanwhile, we go back to Dr. Lycos, and Lycos tells us his whole like backstory. So once upon a time, him and his dad were doing like an expedition in the Ring of Fire, like Patagonia. So the Ring of Fire is like the entire like Pacific Ocean. So, oh no, they were in Tierra del Fuego, which is down in like Argentina, Patagonia area. Sorry, as I'm tracking, it might be Antarctica. No, you know what, it is Antarctica. So he's down in Antarctica, and they're leading an expedition of this guy, Herr Anderson, some German fella. And he brought his daughter with him, so these two children came along for this expedition in Antarctica for whatever crazy reason. And the girl disappears, and everyone goes to go find her. And who finds her but our homie, the future Dr. Lycos. Carl, I think is his name? Carl Lycos. I think so. And then she's being attacked by pterodons. And he runs up with his like old school rifle and starts trying to whack at him, and he's able to drive them off, but he gets bit up a bit by these pterodons, rescuing Tanya, the girl. And so he comes stumbling back, and we find out that Herr Anderson is like a great doctor, so he takes him in and like heals him up and makes sure he's taken care of, and then he magically recovers. But he magically recovers because he gains the power to absorb energy from other people, and then he finds it out by taking the energy from his dog, first of all, who runs away and never talks to him again. And as he grows older, he needs more and more energy. And him and Tanya are kind of in love, but Tanya's dad, Herr Anderson, won't let them be together until he's got money. Because after Carl's Lycos' dad dies, Herr Anderson like raises him as his ward, but doesn't want his daughter to marry him because he doesn't have any money. Smart dad. So he goes off to be a doctor, and he's successful, but he ends up spending a lot of his money instead of like saving it to marry Tanya, to like create contraptions to help him survive and have more energy because he keeps like being depleted. And he comes to the idea that like the mutants must give him enough energy so he won't have to keep doing this. And so he joins up with Professor X originally to find mutants so that he can steal their life force. Wah, wah, wah. And now finally he has one. He has Alex. And behold, I will steal this energy and be super good. And so he steals Alex's energy. But if you've watched the X-Men cartoon series, you'll know that when he steals energy from a mutant, he becomes Sauron. He becomes like a pterodon man. And he names himself, literally in the comics, he's like, I'm going to name myself. At some point, he's like, I can choose to be good or evil. I choose evil. And I will name myself after Lord of the Rings villain, Sauron. Excellent, Sauron. So then he starts just flying around. And the X-Men, meanwhile, are all chilling at the house, like relaxing, and they see news broadcasts, and they're like, hey, this flying guy's out and about doing stuff. And they're like, I think we should lay low because, everyone's still pissed off at us and the whole Sentinel business. And then Angel's like, no, I'm going to go take care of this. And he transforms. He goes and changes in the other room to his Avenging Angel uniform. And he's like, adios, bitches. And he takes off. And the rest of the X-Men are like, maybe we should go follow him. And they're like, yeah, I guess we should. Meanwhile, Warren's flying around. He finds Sauron and comes to fight him. And then Sauron's like, oh yeah, look at my eyes. Because if one thing I didn't mention before is that Dr. Lycos uses magic hypnosis, not real hypnosis. As someone who actually is trained to do hypnosis with people in real life, he uses magical hypnosis, like in movies, and hypnotize. And so when he's like, "Look at my eyes, Angel's like, "Oh yeah, look in your eyes. What do I care?" And he's like, "Oh no, your eyes, your eyes!" And dun dun dun. So what's Angel seeing? So Angel's seeing a lot of crazy stuff. He sees some monsters, including the future. What are they called? Those aliens that like eat everything and they like burst out of people's stomachs. Not the aliens from the Aliens show, but they have God, what are they called? The X-Men deal with them later. Anyway, so he sees that and some other crazy stuff, and he's fighting, and he's starting to push off because he's realizing it's an illusion because he's attacking him. Meanwhile, Soren's just sitting there watching him. Talking, and then we have like a little recall, even though this is like the next issue about what just occurred, how Soren got his powers by being attacked by pterodons, and then he has to feed on things, and he fed on Alex, and that turned him into this thing instead of just like keeping his life energy up. So once we get that recap, Angel starts fighting with him some more, and then all of a sudden the rest of the X-Men show up. So Beast and Iceman and Jean and everybody start fighting, and then Soren's able to hypnotize Jean for a little bit, but they're giving him they're kind of beating the crap out of him. Oh no, it was Cyclops who shot him first. Yeah. Anyway, so they start beating the crap out of him, and then we kind of cut back to Alex, and Alex is, it's like he's hearing like a telephone ring, and he's starting to like wake up, and as he's starting to wake up, Carl, who's Sauron at this juncture, starts to lose his Sauron powers. So right before he kind of he turns back into a human, he hypnotizes Angel one more time and has him taken back to the hospital. And the rest of us were like, God, we got to figure out what's going on. It looks like he got hypnotized again. And so, but they change back into their regular uniforms and head back to find Alex. Meanwhile, Carl lands and gets dressed and heads into like still more power from Alex. But guess who's there? Tanya, the girl he saved that he's in love with. And she's in love with him. And she's like, oh, I'm so glad I found you. I ran away from home so we could be together and be in love. And then the X-Men all show up as like, not the X-Men, as like the regular people. And Tanya's like, who are these? And Carl is like, oh, these are my new friends. And then Alex is up and he's like, oh, I feel better. I don't feel overwhelmed by power and all this stuff. Thank you so much, Doc. And he's like, yeah. Come back next week and we'll do our follow-up appointment. And then dun, 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 the soap opera. Tanya's dad bursts in. He's like, what are you doing with my daughter? And she's like, I want to be with him. I don't care what you say. I'm in love. And Carl's like, I'm in love. And then Carl and the dad like start yelling at each other, and Carl threatens and all this stuff. And then the X-Men, and then they storm off, or the dad storms off with Tanya, Mr. or Dr. Anderson. And then the X-Men are like, whoo, awkward. Sorry, bro. We were just trying to get Alex, and we're sorry. And he's like, whatever. Just I'll see you next week. And then he's like, and then I will gain power. That I will destroy them all. So then the X-Men, they all head back and they like reconnoiter, and they find Warren. He's just sitting there like blank-eyed, and then he starts to freak out because he's coming out from the hypnosis, and he's like, no, Carl, no, Dr. Lycos, keep him away. And Beast knocks him out, and he's like, all right. And the X-Men are like, all right, we're going to go back to Dr. Lycos' office and figure out what's going on. So they head that way, and Lorna and Alex stick around to like read through Professor Xavier's notes on Sauron, or not Sauron, on Carl. And it's, later in the evening, Carl sneaks into the X-Mansion, and Lorna's sitting there like talking to herself out loud, and she's like, oh, it looks like the Professor X named him like a non-mutant variant, unlike us, because we're all mutants. And then, right, Alex? And Alex is like passed out, and she's like, oh, silly boy, my heart belongs to thee. But then she gets zapped with Sauron. She gets her, the power, and then he turns back into a Sauron, and then he takes off, and he bursts through the window at the Anderson place, and he's about to kill Dr. Anderson when the X-Men show up again and fight him some more. And then he's about to attack Tanya, and he's like, no, what am I doing? I've become so evil. I got to stop. And so then he flies away, and he takes off. And the X-Men are like, where's he going? And Tanya's like, I don't know. And then in her thought bubble, she's like, but I do know. I got to get there and talk to him. So Carl goes back to his home, which is in the Tierra del Fuego, where he like was born and grew up, and he's just chilling. He's chilling there, and he's like, I am here to die, because if I became so evil I would kill the love of my life, I don't deserve to be alive. And, and it seems like some time goes by, because he's like, I can't just like kill myself. My instinct to survive is too strong, so I'm gonna. But eventually I'll run out of energy because I can't absorb other human beings' stuff, and I'll be dead, and that'll be good. And then he steps outside, and Tanya's there, and she's like, "My love, I found you." And he's like, "No," and he wants to like suck her energy so bad because it's been like a week. I don't know. It's been a decent amount of time, clearly. So he runs, and Tanya chases him, and then he like throws himself off like a cliff, and she's about to do the same thing, but then luckily the X-Men had secretly followed her, and they stop her. And then it's like, that is the end of Karlykos and Sauron. It's not, but this for now. And then they all, you know, Tanya's all sad, and Jean's like, someone's holding her. I couldn't tell who it was. Maybe Beast? It was kind of odd looking. But they're like, oh, it's so tragic. This whole thing's so tragic. And then that wraps up Sauron. He'll show up again. And at this point, these arcs aren't as like cut and dry. So this is going to lead right into the next arc, which is the Savage Land, which I don't think the X-Men have been there yet. I'm trying to remember. They've definitely run into Khazar before, but I thought that was, maybe they have been to the Savage Land. All right. Well, we'll find out. But yeah, it's good stuff. All right, cool. Catch y'all later.